Up next, we will have our blueprint presentation. Go for it.
Okay, ready. Good evening, President Post, Dr. Townsell, and members of the board. I'm Marcy Groover, the Blueprint and Communication Coordinator. And tonight,
Could you pull the mic slightly closer? Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I think I'm just so tall, it's hard. Kidding. All right. Tonight, I'm here to provide an update on the progress. Now I feel like I'm really loud. Good, okay. I'm here to provide an update on the progress of our CCPS efforts regarding the blueprint for Maryland's future. We begin by grounding us in the framework of the blueprint. The pillars that you see here on the slide are 5 interrelated policy areas that are intended to be implemented systematically and in tandem to achieve the intended blueprint outcome. And that is for all of our students to leave high school globally competitive and prepared for success in post-secondary education, work, and life. So tonight, I'm going to share what we have achieved in the short time between our implementation plan approval up till now, as well as what our implementation teams are currently working on for each pillar to ensure that we are on track with implementing the blueprint. So this slide shows the key policy instruments for pillars 1 and 2. And don't worry, I'm not going to read it to you, but Pillar 1's aim is focused on early childhood education, and it really wants to have a system where all of our young children and families receive health, mental health, financial, and social support that they need to ensure that the students who arrive at our doorstep are ready to learn. And Pillar 2 aims to have a system that elevates the teaching profession to the high status that it deserves, where students are taught by teachers with strong content knowledge who have apprenticed with and been mentored by exceptional teachers to help them hone their craft. This slide shows the key policy instruments for Pillars 3 and 4. Again, I won't read it to you, but the aim of Pillar 3 is to have an engaging and rigorous instructional system that enables our students to reach a college and career readiness standard by the end of their 10th grade year and no later than high school graduation. And Pillar 4 aims to ensure that all students, especially those that need it the most, have access to whatever supports they need in order to be successful. So we'll take a deeper dive in each of our pillars, starting with Pillar 1, early childhood education. Under Pillar 1, we have significantly expanded access and participation in our full-day pre-K program. We now have at least 1 pre-K classroom for 4-year-olds in every elementary school. And we've had a 450% increase in the number of students that are enrolled and participating in pre-K since the 21-22 school year. So that number even surprised me, but we have implemented a state-approved pre-K curriculum, which includes providing training and professional development, as well as collaborative planning sessions. We've identified the number of early childhood paraprofessionals with the required credentials under the blueprint, And I'm excited to share with you that we have 4 schools that earned a Maryland Excels rating of 4 out of 5. So those 4 schools have their accreditation visits scheduled for next year. And so once accredited, then they can be published at an Excels rating of 5. The other 8 schools are starting the accreditation process next year. It's a 2-year process, so once they're accredited, then they can get their Excels rating. And that timeline meets the required 2028 timeline for the blueprint, so we're on track with that. Currently, we are still working on expanding the sites and the number of seats for our full-day pre-K. Space is definitely something that we have to continue to talk about and look at. And we're continuing the training of our early childhood educators. That includes the teachers and our paraprofessionals. And developing a formal tracking system for pre-K credentialing. MSDE is offering a one-time CDA exemption. So CDA is the Child Development Associate credential. So our paraprofessionals have to either have that, a degree, or have 5 or more years of experience in a publicly funded pre-K program. So what we're looking for right now is any of our paraprofessional staff that might meet that 5 or more years criteria. We are vetting that their work really was 5 years in publicly funded pre-K. It's easy when they've been with us, but if they come to us from other systems or other states, there's just a couple more steps that our HR department has to do. But we want to identify who they are and vet that they do meet that criteria so they can be included in our submission on June 30th to MSDE so that they get that exemption. And then finally, we are continuing to work on expanding our partnerships. We are working with private providers to develop that mixed delivery model that's required by the blueprint. And we currently have collaborative meetings and workshops and trainings to share ideas, resources, and strategies. We are working with our Calvert Library here for events and different resources that are available to our families that have children in that birth to age 5 range. And CCPS is a member of the Early Childhood Advisory Committee, or ECAC, as well as our local Interagency Coordinating Council, or LICC. And these committees really focus on family outreach and providing support through parent training events, through private provider trainings, and really coordinating among those agencies to provide supports that will address the needs of the whole child. So it's a big pillar, but important. Important to support that early childhood. Pillar 2, we have successfully revised and negotiated an approved career ladder. We have formed and regularly convened joint career ladder committees. We've also instituted the National Board Certification, or NBC, as the primary driver of professional learning among teachers to move up the career ladder. We currently have 56 educators with their NBC and 61 who are actively pursuing it, and we anticipate that that number will continue to grow. So one of the challenges that we have is making sure that we are encouraging teachers to pursue it, and then supporting those who are pursuing it so that they could obtain that NBC. I'm also excited to share tonight with you that we recently learned we received a grant award to help us deliver the professional learning series that is required under Pillar 2 for all of our teachers. And so we are working on what that might look like and how to roll that out. The funding was a base funding plus a certain calculation depending on the number of teachers that you have in your system. So we were awarded, Calvert was awarded about $40,000, but we're told we might not get all of that. We did get every penny we asked for. So we'll be using that to support that rollout of the professional learning series. Currently, we are still working on defining and implementing the career ladder. That includes the level 3 and the level 4 lead teachers. We have a July 1 submission deadline to define that level 4 lead teacher position. Some other elements of that submission were deferred until a later time. We're also working on designing, as I mentioned, that professional learning system for all of our teachers. And one of the things that we're really thinking through is how our existing, when it comes to the career ladder, how do our existing staff positions align to some of these new career ladder positions, as well as any new positions that are coming up, to make sure that they are in alignment with the positions called for in the career ladder. Oh, and then I forgot to mention, one of the last things, we're currently analyzing our current mentoring and induction program to see what is working with that, what we might need to change in order to meet the criteria as called for under Pillar 2. One of the things that we can note after the legislative session just ended, there was a 3-year pause on that collaborative teacher time. So while there is a pause to that, we're still looking at how we can ensure that all of our schools have a scheduled and structured collaborative time that provides that school-based professional learning opportunities and time to really promote that collective teacher efficacy. Moving to Pillar 3, we have improved our core instruction and we have established our CCR pathways. Those include advanced placement, dual enrollment, and early college. And a quick note on early college, we had a 175% increase in our early college participation from last school year to this school year. And next year, when we roll out the 2-year option, we'll have close to like a 319% increase in the number of Calvert students that are accessing and participating in early college. And when you think about 66% of the jobs in Maryland requires some post-secondary education or training, it is really critical, but also really exciting that we're gonna have this opportunity for our Calvert kids in high school to start earning college credits while still in high school, to no cost to them or their families. So we're excited about that. The last CCR pathway is our Career and Technical Education, or CTE program. It's the program, not the building, but we know a lot of wonderful things are coming out of that, out of CTE, and our students continue to shine at the regional, state, and also national levels. So we're really proud of that. And then the last bullet under accomplishments is our individual career counseling. All of our middle school and high school students are receiving individualized career counseling provided by career advisors at each of those schools. And we just had our career advising check-in call with AIB earlier this week. It was in partnership with CSM and the Tri-County Council of Southern Maryland. And Calvert was verbally acknowledged or recognized as being leaders in the state for designing and implementing a comprehensive career counseling program. So exciting work there as well. Currently, we continue to implement and use high-quality instructional materials, or HQIM, in ELA, math, science, and social studies. We're also working to formalize those CCR pathways and the communication to students and families about what those are. We're ramping up strategies to support students who may not be on track for CCR. And we're using our Pilot Schools initiative with our strategic partner to identify teaming structures and teacher leadership roles that are currently in place that we might be able to replicate across the system. We're also identifying some of the things that we need to make sure that some of those new career ladder positions are going to be effective and that our teachers will be supported and will have stronger student outcomes. Under Pillar 4, accomplishments include training all special educators and some general education teachers on the use of specially designed instruction through a course on our learning management platform. We've also implemented behavioral supports through some specific staff trainings, including restorative practices, TEACH, and LSCI. We're working on implementing effective school-based multi-tiered system of supports. Some of the key efforts for this include providing targeted professional learning opportunities to schools, continuing to strengthen our Tier 1 core instruction, as well as progress monitoring so that we can identify when students are not on track and then identify the resources and supports that they might need, and then monitor to see whether or not that's working. And then finally, training all staff in restorative practices. There will be a restorative practices facilitator in every school next school year. And one thing that we're also excited about is we have our community schools implementation team established in anticipation of having 2 schools identified over the summer as community schools. So right now, our team is just in the process of trying to learn as much as we can about community schools, since this will be new to us, so that when we are officially identified, we'll be ready to hit the ground running and have things in place. I also want to acknowledge St. Mary's County and Charles County because they have both been extremely helpful in meeting with our team and talking through some of the things that they are doing in their counties with community schools. They've shared resources and ideas, so that's helped us see what's worked because we have very similar structures in a lot of respects in that Southern Maryland area. And so it's helping us just get ahead of the game with the community schools. We've also met with Howard County team and their public separate day school principal and community schools coordinator, because one of our 2 schools will be Calvert Country School. And so we really wanted to see what different things should we be considering or might we need to consider if a community school is a public separate day school. And so the Howard County team met with us and talked through some of the things that they are doing at their public separate day school, what's been working for them, and kind of what they wish they knew before they started, so that we have that information moving forward. And we're really just looking overall at the lessons that other systems have learned when it comes to community schools, so we can learn from others and implement ours from the get-go. And then finally, under Pillar 5, which is governance and accountability, the biggest accomplishment is that we had our plan fully approved by the AIB in November. We've also had expert review teams visit 2 of our schools. We had Huntington High School last year, and this year they visited Pack Elementary School. Currently, we're working with our strategic partners to determine the requirements for minimum school funding. We're also awaiting criteria for progress monitoring to measure our sufficient progress. What counts as sufficient progress? What should that look like? What should the report look like? We anticipate that this will be an in-person meeting with AIB, but more details are forthcoming. So in the meantime, we're gathering all the information that we can, so we'll be prepared. Oops. And then we do have our AIB CTE committee expert review team visit is scheduled for our system. We haven't had that yet, and they just scheduled that with us a couple weeks ago. It'll occur next year, I believe in February. So, and one final note, it's not on the slide here, but our under that umbrella of Pillar 5 for the governance and accountability, we did have our CCPS steering committee for the blueprint recently review our blueprint implementation plan and then the CCPS strategic plan. And we did a crosswalk to see, is there any overlap? Where do things connect? Because for the reporting purposes, it's really important to identify, what are we pulling for this report? What are we pulling for that report? And what we found was there was really strong overlap between the student excellence priority and Pillar 3. That probably had the strongest overlap of all of them. There were several points of overlap though. And so we really are excited about having some of those matching indicators, just because when you have to submit one report for one thing, it helps if it also matches reports you have to do for the other. So, and with that, I'm happy to take any feedback or questions that you might have.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I have a,
Sorry, go ahead.
sorry. I have a few. The 450% increase in four-year pre-K, what's the aggregate number that represents? Like, I get it's a high percentage, but I'm just curious on what the number was at.
So I'll have to get you the official number for 21, 22, but we're looking, part of what they did was look at how many did we have in full day pre-K, which was not very much at all. And so when we look at the increase from last year to this year, last year we had 227 students in September, to this year was 253 students.
Okay, and then I know we're trying to expand the pre-K seats as well, right? So how many pre-K seats do we currently have, and what do we need to expand that to from what you went through in Pillar 1?
Yep, so we currently have 253
Right.
seats, and we're actually applying for a pre-K expansion grant so that we can hopefully add 80 additional slots, so that's our goal.
You said 80?
80.
Okay.
Yep, additional for next year.
All right, and then I have one more. Last one I have is, in Pillar 4 with community schools, can you just elaborate on exactly what is a community school for everybody?
Yes, I will try, because it is new to us. But a community school is a school that has been identified through the concentration of poverty grant. And so once they meet a certain percentage from a 3-year average, then they're identified by the state as being a community school. The first year of community school identification, we get a personnel grant, and that grant is used to pay for the salary of a community schools coordinator as well as a nurse practitioner or a healthcare provider. So the first year is a planning year where the school has to do a needs and assets assessment, and then that report is provided to MSDE and AIB by the end of that year one. From that needs assessment, then the school identifies what that community needs. And then the next year, you get a per pupil grant as well. And so it's additional money to be able to implement whatever the school has identified that they need.
Thank you.
You said we have 2 potential community schools or just one right now?
For next year, we have 2 potential.
2.
We won't know officially until MSDE tells us in the summer, but it is shared over the summer. That's when they're identified, and then we start that year one process, but we do get that personnel grant.
Yeah. Okay. Ms. Minikowski?
I had 2 questions. One related to the community schools. I think, Dr. Chancellor, you may be able to clarify. The bill that was passed this year in the Maryland General Assembly, there were changes to funding, like per pupil funding for community schools. Do we know how that will affect Calvert County moving forward?
Yes, they decided not to change that foundational funding, so that didn't pass. So the funding remains the same.
Thank you. My other question was related to college and career readiness. I think we have been doing such an amazing job. I just the other day was at an AP Ambassador event where we went and talked to the graduated seniors, talked to all the juniors about college, and it was really great. A question, I can't remember if this was from a teacher or a student. I was wondering if we have any formal alumni networks within Calvert County or within individual high schools, and if that at all is used in terms of bringing back teachers, bringing back ROTC coordinators for people who go the military path. I was just curious if we had any information about that.
I don't, but that's a great idea. So I can take it back to our Pillar 3 leads and get more information for you, and then if we don't, it's definitely something that we could consider. That
Thank
sounds
you so
great.
much.
Thank you. Do you have a sense of the total dollars that we've spent from the county versus the state on these different pillars?
I will actually defer to Mr. Johnson for that.
We can look into that for you.
I don't think it's such an easy answer. Unfortunately.
Just want to catch it at the
I wish it
beginning
wa-
because,
I really wish it were that easy, but, we've been at this for a while, and I can say certainly there seems to be a lot of moving parts, and a lot of things continue to change, and it seemingly has been kind of difficult to,
well, it seems that pre-K is certainly something that
Well,
is
sure.
absolutely incremental to what we did before Kerwin, right?
Yeah.
So that's one, chunk of money we could certainly point to. But I think, and Grace, I'm sorry, when they discussed that in the legislature, that was before they had a deficit. So all those good ideas usually go away because it usually comes down to money. But we should definitely keep track of what we're spending.
and they are talking about that as well, because they realize that perhaps the amount of money to achieve all of these things might be greater than what we have. I had a question and I forgot it. Ms. Brennis?
One of my concerns when you're talking about expanding the seats for full-day pre-K is obviously the space in the seats.
Yeah.
I just want to ensure that like class sizes wouldn't get larger to make additional space, class space.
Yeah, good question, because 4-year-olds still has a 1-to-20 ratio, so it would be looking at some of the existing space that we have. So for example, Head Start was previously considered a private provider, or they are considered a private provider. But part of the grant that we're applying for is actually to work with Head Start, and if we can have a certified teacher in those classrooms, that would give us those additional seats, and then certainly not increase any classes and not expand physical locations because we're using existing space.
Okay, and that's funny you brought Head Start up, because that was my next question. I know there was concern about funding for Head Start. Do we have any update on that?
I do not see.
So at this point in time, we believe that it's going to move forward, but it's still with the legislation and all of that. So we believe it is. We have funding going into next year. So we are keeping an eye on that, but things change at any moment. So right now, it still looks good.
Okay, and finally, I just want to congratulate you on getting fully approved. That's a great accomplishment. Congratulations.
Full disclosure, that happened before my position started here. So we had a great team and everybody that did a lot of work happen, but I'll take the
Wow.
credit.
Thank you to everyone who was involved.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.